morning and welcome, Patriot Radio News Hour. Joe Jaquin here. Jason will be here sometimes sooner or later, and Jason as well. Happy Thursday to you. Getting ready for Christmas here, as we said all week. We'll be closed next Monday and Tuesday. Then we'll be closed the following Monday and Tuesday for Christmas and New Year's. But you can always go to allamericangold.com and order 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Don't forget, follow us on YouTube and Rumble and Thumbs Up and all that other great stuff. Share this with everybody so they're in the know. Our toll-free number, 800-951-0592. Man, gold's looking really, really comfortable. Up another $8.50 today, approaching what, 2045, 2045. Silver is higher as well, about $24.40. And we'll get to all of the data points. We had a big down day yesterday on Wall Street. Recovering today because, well, we got bad news. So for now, bad news is good news. But for good news, my mom's in town. My youngest son is here. Joey and his significant other, his girlfriend, are coming. We're going to have a packed house all holiday season long. But today I heard my wife and my mom talking, and it is meatball making time. So there's a couple of things that when my mom's in town, that we always have her make. One is, you're right, the spaghetti and meatballs, right? They make great meatballs and we homemade breadcrumbs and all that stuff, but then Italian wedding soup. So those are the little meatballs. So she's going to bust out. It's going to be a meatball factory at my house. I can't wait. The best part about wedding soup, it's not the first day. I mean, you're always excited. Certain things, and you guys know how this is, certain things taste better like the next day. It's not everything, right? Some things it's like, yeah, if you don't eat it, you don't eat it that day, you probably don't want to, really go at it again. But wedding soup, it's good the first day. You got to have a bowl. And then, but man, that thing just gets better. I think by day 3, when it's been sitting out, back in New York, my mom would make, the big pot of it. And it was cold enough, she put it in the garage, and then all the grease would be up at the top. You scoop it out and you put it back. It's so big, it'd take up half your refrigerator, right? Well, in Arizona, doesn't quite get cold enough to sit it out in the garage, but that's what the backup refrigerator's for. So I'm probably going to put on a few pounds. My wife had announced that she is going to allow for 5 pounds, 5 pounds of weight gain over the. I don't know. I may have to double that. But I'm pretty excited. There's going to be a lot of good eating, and no, you can't come over. A lot of good eating at my house, starting really tomorrow, all the way through New Year's. So now that I've got your appetites wet, lots of things, as we look for 2024, lots of different predictions. We've got everything from complete economic collapse to the S&P is going to be up 8%, right? I mean, those are, that's kind of the good case, bad case scenario. Obviously, let's hope for something in the middle, because if the S&P is up 8%, that means inflation is roaring. That's just, it can't be unless we have a situation like that where inflation is taken off. You got to remember, the Fed is still contracting the money supply right now. And contracting it, the last time they contracted the money supply like this, you're talking Great Depression styles, things that were happening. We've lived in and really make-believe. Going back to the financial crisis, I mean, when you actually think about the amount of debt, the 15 years of 0% interest rates, and all of these other things, these special, quantitative easing, right? That wasn't never a thing, right? Emergency repo facilities, an emergency this facility. Now we got an emergency bank facility. Jason, they really have pumped this thing up over the last 15 years. And the question really is going to be, okay, when is the timing? Can they get another year out of this in 2024, or is it all going to fall apart in 2024? I don't like the start to it. We had the last Fed meeting last week, and the central bankers are saying, well, we're confused at why the markets are reacting, why they're acting the way they are. That's not a good start heading into 2024.
Going to be economic chaos at some point next year. Some bad stuff is going down. I mean, look at how people acted when those few banks, Silicon Valley Bank went down in March. Things got really scary really quick, right? We've been talking about how things are going to get scary really quick or in the future. Well, that's going to be 2024, Joe. At some point, you're going to see really scary. It's going to happen. It's going to seem like it's happening really quick. Although what we've been saying for the last couple of years, get ready for it, right, Joe?
800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason here on this Thursday. Quick look in here. The Dow's up 200. It was down about 500 points. Really, really high valuations going on Wall Street right now. The S&P's up 30. The NASDAQ's up 120. Gold's up 8. Silver's up 5. The 10-year note, I don't mean to laugh. It's scary, right? 3. Sometimes when I get scared, I just laugh, right? Because I don't know what else to do with my emotions. 387. I mean, this thing was 5% 6 weeks ago. This market, the treasury market, people don't understand. It's not supposed to move like this. This is supposed to be the deepest market in the world, which would mean what? Boring. Like, hey, if it moves a couple basis points, that's a ton. It's not what we're seeing here. This is why we keep talking about why refi. So I don't know, 2024, Goldman Sachs says, hey, S&P can be up 8%. It's like S&P 5,100. I don't know whether the Dow may be close to 40,000. Maybe. Harry Dent, not that, Harry Dent's been right once in his life. He can be right again. Right? He says, we're getting ready to revert back to the 100% artificial growth, right? Because really think about the growth for the last 15 years. It's all been debt. I mean, I think everybody can agree on that, right? We just created record amounts of debt, and eventually you got to pay the piper. We all know that. That's why we talk about why refi. Hey, you want to put some money over at Y Refi for 5 years? You're going to get 10.25% fixed rates of return. And you get, you're sitting there going, wait a minute, if I put $1 million in there, I'm going to get, over $100,000. Right? You can turn your income on, you can turn it off, right? You can turn it in, right? Hey, every month send me a check. You can compound it, you can roll it, you can do whatever you want. You may say, hey, send me a check every other month. Right? Hey, I'm going to take the interest one month and I'm not going to take the interest the next month, whatever. Maybe you're like, well, 5 years, that's kind of long. I'm really worried about 2024. Think about what happened with Colorado and Trump, right? People are worried. Well, 1 year, they're going to give you 6.5%. You heard me right. 6.5%. Not correlated to Wall Street. Doesn't care that the Fed's confused. They're not confused, by the way. They don't care. Now, you got to have at least $50,000. You know that. Call them. Get prepared. We're at the end of this debt. It's so obvious we're at the end of the debt cycle. And it hasn't been 15 years of debt. Let's not kid ourselves. It's been like 50 ever since we've gone off the gold standard officially in 1971. You know what the debt was, the national debt in 1971? $400 billion. So think about this. It was right near my birthday, 1971, August 1971. Richard Nixon takes us off the gold standard. Official. Now, obviously, us citizenry, we were off the gold standard in 1933. But he told all foreign governments, you know, we talk about all these foreign governments selling treasuries right now. It's a big, by the way, horrendous. Why did the Dow drop 500 points yesterday? Horrendous 20-year auction yesterday. Another one of these massive tails. It's just not good. There's too much debt. Do you know what they were doing in the 50s and really into the 60s and 70s? Because we talk about that once. Japan is selling. China's selling, right? Everybody's selling. Foreigners are selling U.S. debt. Well, back then, they could demand payment in gold. They still could at $35. Well, we had 20,000 metric tons of gold after World War II. Now they say that we've got 8. Just think about this. We just broke the record for most central bank gold buying going back to 1969. Now we're going to break it again this year. 2 years in a row. This just tells you, and guess what? They're not buying gold for $35. They're looking at gold at $2,000 and saying, yeah, I'm taking it. Give it to me. We had a debt of $400 billion in 1971. You could really make the argument that we've been on an artificial rise in what I'll call paper assets, debt instruments. We've been battling inflation. The average home was like $25,000 in 71. It's over $400,000. A Corvette. What's a Corvette? Mustang. What? $3,000? $4,000? I don't even know what a Corvette costs. Over 100. I know that, right? I mean, big money. This is what they've done. We had a stronger middle class then than we do today. Without a doubt. Now, we got a lot of people that say they're middle class. But believe me, back then, you weren't living paycheck to paycheck in the middle class. Now we got what? 60-some% of everybody out there is living paycheck to paycheck. And my guess is it's actually a little higher than that, Jason. Some people just don't want to admit it, right? They just don't want, okay, I'm not living paycheck to paycheck. But, man, if I miss a second paycheck, okay, now I'm busted, right? You know, right? I'm barely better than paycheck to paycheck.
I think there's a lot of people that are, well, how about this? How do you even define it? I think a lot of people are not even paycheck to paycheck. If you're using credit cards to get your stuff paid, you're not even really paycheck to paycheck. You're burying yourself slowly. And a harsh bankruptcy and a foreclosure on your property and all those things is what comes if you can't make your debt payments. You are a small version of our federal government, but the federal government can print the money to pay their bills. You cannot. So Jack or Joe, I don't know if a lot of people are really even paycheck to paycheck. They're credit card to credit card. And then for all those that are just have their head barely above water, yeah, there's paycheck to paycheck. And just like you said, some people are 2 paychecks away from disaster, right? Hey, I can miss a week, but I can't miss 2, right? You know, I only get 2 paychecks a month. If I miss 1 week, I get a half check and a full check. I can scrape it by,
Right.
It's bad. It's bad. Credit card to credit card, Joe. I think it's getting to be more likely now.
And it's something where we haven't contracted the money supply. Going back to, the Great Depression? Haven't done it. It's always been, right? What has always been create more debt, create more debt, create more debt, create more debt. Whoops, we created too much debt. Let's contract the money supply. I know how the Great Depression went. Okay, how do I know? Well, because I read it, right? It's in the history books. And no, we didn't. Let me say this, by the way. The central bank got us into the Great Depression. They did not get us out of the Great Depression. World War II got us out of the Great Depression. Not the central bank. They didn't save us. And I think this is a big fallacy that too many people, I know Wall Street has it. The central bank will save us. Did they save anybody in 07 or 08? Did you guys get saved? How many of you lost your houses? How many of you had to raid your 401k? How many of you saw all of your investments lose 50, 60, 70% of their value? And Jason, unfortunately, I think this is the same setup. Now, I'm going to hope that we don't pay the same price that we paid in the Great Depression. Right? But history tells us, though, Jason, right, that's the price you pay. Right? The roaring 20s, right? Remember the roaring 20s? Well, what do you think we've been in? I don't know, since at least 2013. Right? Because after the financial crisis, let's not kid ourselves. 2009, 2010, 2011, they weren't great. They weren't great. But for at least the last 10 to 12 years, what do you think this has been? The Dow went from 6,700 to 37,000. All on the fact that the debt, right? The debt went from what? I don't know, 7 trillion to 40 trillion. Right? I mean, this is what we're talking. On top of that, all kinds of quantitative stuff that we don't know about. Emergency facilities and all this other stuff. And now we're contracting the money supply and somehow it's going to end well, Jason. That's a hard one. It's never been done. Can it be done? I guess it's possible, but I don't think the odds are in favor of the central bank saving anybody.
Well, no, and that's why a monetary reset or a global monetary reset, that's what usually happens. I mean, technically, America went bankrupt twice. In 1933, we took the gold. That was a part of that. It was a bankruptcy. And in World War II, and blowing up every industrialized nation on the planet created a centralized banking world system, which is what that reset was. Is it going to have to be that severe this time around? I mean, there's a lot of gloom and doom going around the airwaves, right, Joe, of what's getting ready to happen. And a monetary reset is, you can contract the money supply all you want. It's not going to solve the issue of a debt money system. You either have to fix the system and make it right, or you have to have a massive, massive reset. And it's a shell game. Which shell is the ball under? While people are running around worrying about a war here and a war there and presidential elections and things of this nature. The world monetary situation is going to change. It's going to be painful. There's still some people alive that were alive during the Great Depression, Joe. Those are the people you need to talk to about. My grandma, for instance, she ate meat once a month. That kind of conditions, Joe. That kind of destitute and and poorness for the population. I don't know if we're going to get that bad, but it sure looks like it's going to get really bad, and it's going to happen for many years, Joe.
Yeah, and you know, looking at the auctions, I told you about the 20-year auction yesterday. Another one of these huge tails, and tails are bad. That means that there's not people willing to buy at what Wall Street says the rate should be, and demanding more interest. Not only was there a massive tail, the biggest tail in the last year and a half. So basically, all the tails in the last year and a half, they're like record tails. These are records. But internally, inside of it, the bid to cover was well below average. Then it's like, okay, well, who bought it? Also, really ugly. So the three big things you look for in auctions: how big's the tail? The bigger the tail, the worse it is. Bid to cover, right? How many people are there? And then internally, how much did the banks end up having to buy? And the more they got to buy, the worse it is. This was essentially a triple play here, and not in a good way. They were all bad. We'll be back after the break. 800-951-0592. Gold's up 8/20/43. Silver's up 5/24/40 here on this Thursday. Calling all big hitters today. This is a Christmas special of epic proportions. $20 Liberty gold pieces. Right now, for anybody, $2,275. Buy 10 or more, $2,265. I got to remember, yesterday these were $2,325, and that was a good price. So today, gold's up 9 now, right? Let's call it. We'll run. Gold's up 10. 1 through 9, you're going to pay $50 less. Buy 10 or more, take it down to $2,265, $60 less. 20 or more, $2,250. 20 or more at $2,250. So if you bought 20 of them, it's $45,000. $45,000 for 20 of them. That's $75 an ounce less than yesterday, and gold's up $10. That's what we talk about when we talk about Christmas sales. 800-951-0592. Now, I told you we had good news or bad news today. The final revision to third quarter GDP. So remember, 5.2%. They revised it down to 4.9. Still, let's round it up. 5% third quarter GDP growth. The way these guys do math. But of course, we all know the economy was slowing, but somehow we got 5% GDP growth. But why did Wall Street like it so much? Because that's inflationary. That doesn't say rate cuts. Right? What are we doing? 5% GDP? We got to cut rates? No. Every time you go back in history of the Federal Reserve, every time GDP was 5%, they were talking about rate hikes. Not talking about it, they were hiking them. That's why it's all artificial. But what did they like in there? Well, the core PCE, right, this is their fake inflation number, was 2% in the final. It had been 2.3. So, again, they're saying, see, well, we got inflation under control. Just don't go to the supermarket. And it's under control. Right. As long as you don't got to buy food, I guess it's under control. By the way, 2%, right in line with its inflation. Isn't that interesting how that just magically happened? Magic. We got to 2%. What else did they like? Well, a big downward revision to consumer spending. Oh. So the consumer wasn't really that good. And it was a big drop from almost 2.5 to 2.1. That is a big drop. In the second, I got to remember, they do 3 different times. They originally started this. Consumer consumption, Jason, was up 2.7%. They've gotten it all the way down to 2.1%. But again, I guess bad news is good news. The consumer was actually showing signs of fatigue earlier than they admitted to. But the good news was inflation's falling.
Well, I guess. I mean, it seems like inflation might have gone a little sideways the last few months. I don't see falling, right? And we'll see how inflation falling in the next few months. We'll see how that looks. Because you could say falling all you want. I bet in the 1970s they talked about it falling, didn't they, a couple of times, Joe? Yeah. Inflation's falling. Volcker did it. And then, he did it too fast and too harshly, and a little bit of a bullwhip as the inflation came back. It went down and came back, and every time it came back for those 3 humps, it came back harder and larger and worse until they finally stepped on it. And will the Fed even have the ability or the strength to do that big step like they did in the 70s where, hey, okay, we're just going to make it 12% and step on this thing, Joe?
Can't do it.
The debt.
Banks are hemorrhaging money again. I'm sorry. That's just the truth. You don't have to believe me, but that's the truth. Record every single week. More and more. They need more and more money from the Fed because they don't have enough money. People have got to make their mortgage payments. They got to make their credit card payments, their car payments. They don't have it. The banks don't have it. They got to go borrow it from the Fed. Why not just sell off the treasuries? Well, that's the problem. They have debt that they can sell. They've got commercial real estate, residential real estate, right? They've got treasuries, and who knows, whatever, they got some that they did their own loaning on. I don't know what they did. Maybe it's auto loans. Credit card debt. But they've got it. Well, we don't want to sell it. Well, why not? Well, because we're going to lose our ass when we do, and we already don't have enough money. Now we got to take these losses, right? Everyone's going to run, right? We're going to go under. Don't be fooled here. And I think a lot of people are getting set up. It's cruel. But then, you know what you get? We had jobless claims today. I mean, according to the Fed, nobody's getting fired. Right? 205,000. I mean, these are historically low numbers. But you just said that in GDP, a lot of it was war spending. Let's call the spade a spade there, right? 4.9 GDP. A lot of that was Ukraine. But the consumer, 2%. That's it. I mean, that's especially with inflation as high as it is. That's actually not good. Because inflation was higher than what the consumption was, which means, well, like all of these companies are telling you, look at what FedEx said yesterday. Shipments are way down. But everybody's working for now. It's not going to take a lot, is it? And here's the sad part. I guess the good part is, thankfully, everybody's working. Because with everybody working, unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans are not better off. They're still all, like we talked about earlier in the show. Hey, most of them can't even miss a single paycheck. Some of them, Jason, right, I may be able to miss one. The second I miss a second one, you're talking about 3/4 of the country saying, I can't pay my bills at all. That's the big problem. That's what we're getting with. 800-951-0592. Jason and I will be right back. 800-951-0592. Joe and Jason on this Thursday. We've got one more day. We'll be closed on Monday and Tuesday. Jason and I will then be back on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then closed on Monday and Tuesday again. Obviously, Christmas and New Year's. But we've got it's a great special today. If you've never ordered, and you know you need to, I don't think there's anybody out there that doesn't wish and think that, man, I wish I had some gold and silver put away. Because people get it now. They're starting to get it. A lot of people are starting to get it. Just call the 800 number and just tell Kathy, I want the special. That's all. She's going to ask you, how many would you like? Well, I want one $20 gold piece. Okay, that's $2,275. I want 10. Well, then that's $2,265. Well, give me 20. All right, that's $2,250. And it's just that simple. So take your information. If you want to pick up, pay and pick up in our offices in Arizona or Colorado, perfect. You get locked in. Every time you order, we will give you a trade number. That locks you in. Let's just say tomorrow, who knows what happens tomorrow. Some other number comes out. We have another terrible auction. I don't know. And gold goes up $50 tomorrow. Well, you're locked into today's price. You're locked in. If you want to pick up, pay when you pick up. We'll call you when your product's available and ready. And then you tell us when you can come and get it. It's really simple. We're not a coin store. People hate that. Right? Why would you want to be, let's just say you're buying $45,000 worth of gold. Why would you want to have a bunch of other people watching you? Right? Everything's by appointment. Handle your business, and you go on your way. If you want to mail us a check and have us ship it to you, great. We charge a flat $35 to ship. That's all it is. That's the only fee there is. You want to put it on a credit card? Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Discover. We do add 2%, which is, I'm slow, I'm dumb. Everybody charges 3 and 4%. We just start, it's been 2% for so long. I don't want to change it. I'm going to have to, but I don't want to. But we only charge 2%. And it's just that simple. Well, what happens after that? What if I called, I want to ask some questions? Great. We'll answer them all. But then you're going to call me all the time. No. We don't make outbound phone calls. The only time we call you, hey, your order's ready. When can you come pick it up? Or if you asked us, hey, will you call me when my check gets there? Okay, sure. Will you call me with your tracking number? With the tracking number? Yeah, you bet we will. But otherwise, you don't hear from us. And I think people appreciate that. We don't sell your information. You don't get put on a list. I know, we're a sales company. You're supposed to do all those things. Well, I always hate that, and I know Jason hates that, so we don't do it. We just don't do it. So if you want the special today, just call 800-951-0592 and just say, I want the special. And we're just going to say, how many would you like? And you just tell us. And it's just that simple, Jason. There's no bait and switch. We're not going to try to sell you something else, right? We're not going to do anything other than take that order. And then when it's all said and done, for 27 years, you have that product, period. At the price we agreed to. You're not waiting months. Right? Anybody that orders today, if you have time, if you can fit it in, you'd be able to pick it up in the 3 days that we're open. But the bottom line is, you order today, hey, you're coming in either that day, the next day, a couple of days later, next week at the latest, come get it. Right? You're mailing us a check. You're a regular customer of ours. As soon as that check hits the door, guess what? Boom. Your product's gone. It's out the door within 48 hours, usually that day. 800-951-0592. You know what? Something else? Why? You know, I'm thinking about. You know, people aren't having kids anymore, and we did a show on the Half Empty Cup about the border. And man, if we don't have these people coming in, the population is going to start declining, and blah blah blah. According to the Federal Reserve, health care cost. Child care cost up 32%, and now saying that the average cost of child care $40,000. What are you talking? $40,000. I mean, I was fortunate. My kids, my wife was able to stay at home. We did it that way. We make sacrifices for that. I know Jason, the same thing. We make sacrifices for that. But for a lot of people, Jason, that's not an option. We got to go to work. Our kids, you know what? They've got to go to daycare. They have to go because in order for us to put a roof over our head, this is what it takes anymore. And, of course, now they're saying a big reason why a lot of people are working multiple jobs because they can't afford child care without it.
Yeah, I mean, to make the sacrifices necessary to do that, you have to have you have to sacrifice a lot of standard of living. You know, for a, let's just say, a stay-at-home mom, a married couple who can't get divorced in this situation, you have to have the mother or the father working full-time. And then for that to happen on normal wages, Joe, you have to have every government handout, food stamps, living expenses, all the government handouts for you to do such a thing, Joe, as a stay-at-home mom with one working parent. That's becoming a day well behind most Americans, Joe. It's a dream for some people, but it's not a reality for most.
800-951-0592. Final segment. Jason and I were wrapping it up. 800-951-0592. $20 gold pieces 1 through 9, $22.75. 10 or more, $22.65. 20 or more, $22.50. And, yesterday we had a question come in about, we're talking about digital currency because that's what's coming. Think about 33. What happened in 1933? Oh, they got rid of gold. That was the last time we had money supply contraction. We've got it again now. Well, what do you think they're going to take? They're going to take the fiat money. That's what's coming next. I mean, no one's surprised. That's where we're going. That's where we're heading. But someone asked, hey, will you still be able to sell gold? Of course. Now, instead of paying for it, with cash, right, you won't be able to use cash anymore. You're going to have to write a check or put it on a card, or I guess we'll all have central bank digital currency accounts. You can, sort of like Venmo it. When you go to sell, right, it'll work the same way. The only difference is you're not going to get cash anymore. That's what's going to go. That's what's going to go away. But it's going to be very interesting what happens to gold this time. Last time, it went from $20 to $35. Right? 70% increase in price. But again, gold wasn't allowed to freely trade. This time, it's going to be freely trading. It's going to be, I don't know how high it goes, but I have the feeling it's going to be a whole lot higher than 70%, Jason. I think we're going to see a gold price that a lot of people, and I'm not saying that we're going digital in 2024, but we're going to be set up. The setup for digital is here. I think we're going to be digital. We don't get to 2030. We don't get that far before this happens. And I think we're going to see a significantly higher price. It's kind of weird talking about, gold's, not quite $2,050, talking about, hey, is gold going to be 4,000, 5,000, 10,000? And my guess is, yeah, probably somewhere in that range anyway. When we look at what happened in previous history. It is kind of funny how they want to pretend. I guess they want to pretend that, oh, wait, we've done this a lot of times. No, they haven't. Well, let's look back at what happened the last time they did that. And somehow, seemingly, they never want to look. Because if they looked, they'd be like, well, gosh, it was the Great Depression. Well, I don't want to go on TV and say Great Depression. I want to tell everybody the S&P is going to be up 8% in 2024. And it may be, because I don't think 2024 is the year. But this is definitely, when we talk about silver being, or gold being comfortable above 2,000 for the first time, Jason, it really is. When we look over let's just say the next 6 years, it's really hard to have a scenario where the gold price isn't significantly higher. I mean, right? I mean, it really is. It's hard to come up with a scenario where you're not seeing a massive return. I mean, look at all the debts, right? All the troubles at the auctions. I mean, the list it's almost endless.
And we'll be watching it, right, Joe? We're going to watch. I don't think that gold 3,000, 4,000 is something that should be something that we should be worried about talking about. It's just a matter of time, Joe.
800-951-0592. Jason and I, we're coming right back with the half-empty cup.
Hi, this